oh, you're really fucking cool. But maybe my guide for what is cool and what is not cool could be a little bit off. Okay, so the question was, why do we use solid rivets versus pop rivets? Now that is a very, very, very good question that I'm going to answer very, very, very soon. Oh, mother trucker. The question was, why do we use, say, a pop rivet versus a solid rivet? And, well, here comes the answer. A solid rivet is stronger. That's it. No more science required. A solid rivet is stronger. Let me show you why. Let's first take a look here at a regular dissected pop rivet. I'm not going to be able to see chat for a while, guys, so just let me go on a little bit of a rant here. There's a few things I would like you to notice about this pop rivet. Let's go ahead and bring it under the scope. And maybe we can even bring it into focus. That's probably some of my hair. Let's go ahead and bring this puppy down here. Oh, I believe we're in focus. Oh, we're in fucking focus, team. Everyone can calm down.
Work, my friend.
I believe that's hair. I just... Let me get rid of the furry rivet. Actually, there was meant to be furries here in town tonight. Flurries, furry, same thing. Here is... This is fucking cool. Oh my fucking god, I would totally be watching this right now. Okay, so this is a standard pop rivet that's been dissected. How fucking cool is this? Jesus Christ! So this was a regular pop rivet. Let's go ahead and have a little look at a few things about this material. So the first thing is we have two pieces of metal here that are being stuck together. So the first thing we'll do is ignore the fur that's stuck in this. I really shouldn't have put it through the polish wheel. I'm just going to bring this down and use my fancy little adjusterometer here. Oh! So the first thing I'd like you to take a look at is notice the gap between the two pieces of metal there. You can see there's quite a little bit of a gap on this edge here. And, well, this is because we didn't really prepare the metal properly. But you'll notice there's not really a great adhesion between the two bits here. There's not really that great of adhesion. The second thing is let's actually have a look at the rivet body. So the first thing that we can see is if I had a little pokerometer.
For the kind words and a little support in my dark time, thank you.
Who the fuck that was a I'm trying to fucking science and shit here, guys. Can you just calm down? Peter Foster for the kind words and a little support in my dark time. Thank you very Peter Foster. SimPilot, solid structures work, my friend. Thank you so much, guys. SimPilot 13, Ski284, Peter Foster. Man, I hope you are through those dark times, whatever they may be. Whatever they may be, man, holy shit. Thank you so much for supporting the project, supporting me. You didn't need to do that. Please, I hope you enjoy the stream, and I hope you enjoy the fine folk here in chat behind me that are probably screaming at me about how fucking cool this is right now. Thank you so much. I do not mind being, what's the word? Interrupted by support. Thank you so much. I'm only joking. I just really, yeah, science and stuff, right? I do need a little, there's a little pokerometer. Okay, so I got a little pokerometer here, so we can go ahead and do some educating. So let's have a little look at. This is so fucking cool. This might just be the third or fourth coolest thing we've ever done on the internet. Let's get rid of that little thing, whatever that is. Get out of there, little guy. What are you? Okay. So the first thing that we'll take note of with a pop rivet is this giant fucking chasm in the head here. The rivet urethra or something? I don't really know. But there's this giant cavern in the middle of the rivet. So the real anatomy of the rivet here is what we're looking at is we have some soft material. This is a blind rivet or a pop rivet. We have soft material around the outside, which is basically just a cylinder. And then down the inside is we have a hard bit of material. This here is typically steel, and that steel is attached to a rod through here. And this kind of forms like the head, and, oh god, not safe for work. Now, this head here starts on the outside of the rivet. Let me go ahead and grab one of these that are not pulled. One of you, yeah. So, pop rivet, okay? Here is a pop rivet before it's been pulled through. So we can see a erect rivet, if you will. We have here an erect rivet. Here is the hardened piece, and here is the soft material that forms the shank. Now, this part here is attached to the head at the other end, this part here, and it's that head which forms out against the soft material and makes it bulge a little like this here. So it's this head, that hardened bit of material there at the end, that is drawn through the soft material that ends up forming this bulge. And it's this bulge that provides a force between the head and the bulge. Fuck! Between the head and the bulge is what squeezes our two pieces of material together. Remember, we do have two pieces of material here. So there is a force that is holding these two things together. So the rod that holds onto the head here sticks through and it shears itself off right in the top of the head. There we go, we can see it shears. And it shears at a certain pressure, and it's not really that nice. Now, it's important to note this rod down the center part does not provide any structural strength whatsoever. It does provide some in shear, right? Like imagine this piece and this piece. One piece is moving this way and the other piece is moving this way. Well, it's going to provide something in shear, but in pull loads, this thing is doing absolutely fucking nothing. What I mean by pull loads is if this top sheet here tried moving to the top of screen and this bottom sheet here tried moving to the bottom of screen. If that happened, our head and rod here are actually doing fuck all. They're not doing anything. So the only thing holding the material together is this soft material here and this soft material here. And also the soft material down here in the corner. Because again, we have a chasm at the top of the rivet, and we also have a void chasm down the bottom of the rivet. The bottom of the rivet is actually supported a little bit by this material, but you know, not by much. And where you can see the hole, well, our hole is from that side of my screwdriver to here, and the rivet kind of like, it does its best to fill that gap. But you'll notice it's not perfect. You see up here, there's a little bit of a little gap-a-rooney just up here, a little bit of a gap. Guess what's going to happen in there? Well, some water's going to sneak in there and it's going to corrode. Look how fucking sciencey we are. We even got fucking goggles on. God, I need a lab coat. It would be fine. So yeah, here there's a little bit of a chasm there, and we would expect maybe some corrosion. But if it doesn't corrode, let's say there's a good enough seal up here. Well, we definitely don't have a really, really nice structural. We don't have a real nice. What's the word? Fuck. Transition of force or something like that. I don't know. Like imagine these. This material here, the skins, is trying to move. Well, if there's a little bit of an air gap there, that little bit of an air gap is going to be a weak point, and it could be prone to cracking or even the rivet could end up during vibration. Remember, our aircraft has a 260 horsepower vibrator up front. Is that all that vibration eventually will weaken this part here, and the material could crack, or the rivet will just end up working itself free. So basically, what we have here is it's a rivet. It does some things well. Now, this is a very basic rivet. There are stronger aviation grade rivets, blah, 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 blah. But for a standard pop rivet, this is what we're looking at. So let's summarize. We have not the world's greatest seal between the bits of material. Now, we didn't prepare this properly. We just drilled a hole. We didn't deburr. We didn't do anything like that. We just drilled a frickin' hole. And then we put the thing in. So we're relying on the forces between the head and the head of the rivet and the knob of the rivet, squeezing the material together, and it did a good job, but it didn't fill all of these chasms here, all of these little gaps. And even once it's done, well, there's this giant, the bum hole of the rivet, there's this giant sort of chasm in there, and I mean, you can even see, like, if I stop shaking so much, sorry team, let's just get the thing rested down, that's much better. You can see that gap around the head there, right? You can see that there's almost a gap around this soft material. You can see there's quite a large gap through here. It's not a very strong structural piece of, it's not a very strong way of transferring forces through the skin of a semi-monocoque aircraft. Remember, our aircraft is semi-monocoque. This thing is not just designed to hold things together, it's actually got to transmit loads through the skin and into the substructure. There we go. Shall we have a look at a solid rivet? I think we should. Here comes a solid rivet. Oh my. Oh my. Here we have a solid rivet. We don't have a perfect hole. You know how I can tell we don't have a perfect hole? Is, have a look here. The hole didn't even go in straight. We can see where I drilled my hole. So this is worst case scenario for a solid rivet, is the hole isn't straight. Where the hole should have been is like this, but I'll exaggerate, it's like this. And even though, because the rivet, that hole wasn't straight, you can kind of see the other side is a little bit out as well. The rivet has gone ahead and filled all of that gap. It's filled it all. Have a look down the bottom here. We've got a nice thing. And the other thing you'll notice is there's no great big fucking hole through the center of the thing. This material here is almost the same material as the 2024 that we've got over here. So this rivet is going to transmit loads from the skin into the structure very, very well. And in fact, it is actually strengthening the material. You would expect with a rivet like this, that is my finger, with a rivet like this, what we are trying to do is minimize the amount of structural integrity loss with putting a hole in the material. So we go ahead and we drill a hole through the material, and now we've weakened the structure. So when we put a rivet in here, this type of rivet, what we're trying to do is minimize that structural integrity loss. This rivet doesn't do it. It only brings it back to like maybe 60-70% as if there was no hole. If there was no hole, this thing would bring it back maybe 60-70%. These are just numbers I'm pulling out of my ass. I don't know what the real fucking numbers are, but yeah, something like that. I'm probably pretty close. So this thing never, once we put this type of rivet in, it never brings the structural integrity back up to what it would be if there was no hole. But our solid rivet friend here, hello friend, hello solid rivet, it actually brings the strength of this material up to, and sometimes even greater than if there was no hole at all. So putting this rivet in actually makes this part of the material a wee bit stronger, if it's riveted correctly. This basically is riveted correctly, it's just the hole wasn't perfect, blah, 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 blah. The other thing I want you to take note of is have a look at the gap we have between the two pieces of material. All the way along, we've got a very, very nice, strong squeezing action between the top material and the bottom material. But yes, this rivet here will actually increase the strength as if, it'll bring it to as if there was nothing in the hole. It'll shit all over that. And if there was no hole, putting this rivet in, if it's riveted correctly, the hole is nice and perfect, it's deburred, there's no material left in there or anything like that, putting a solid rivet in some cases can bring the strength of this part of the material up to above what it would have been without a hole at all. So this actually restores and betters the structural integrity of our skin. That is one of the reasons why we choose solid rivets. The other reason is they're cheaper. So they're cheaper, they're stronger, like, sure, they take a little bit more time to put in, but they're actually not that bad. And again, we can have a little look at our rivet, how it sits here against the skin. Nice and tight, AF, as fuck, is what I would imagine that stands for. And yeah, the bottom side of the rivet, is there anything interesting to see there? I don't think so. But there you go. So this is why a solid rivet, dissected, is that even though we didn't do a good job of cleaning up the material, we didn't get nice straight holes. Like, I mean, you can literally see the different material there. The rivet did a job of squeezing itself into that area, filling out the gap, and actually increasing the strength of this material. Was that cool? The rivet's solid as fuck. It's lit, as the kids would say. Is that not cool? I think that's cool as fuck. We just fucking science. We just science like fuck on this channel. Look at just science like fuck. Oh. What more do you want from me? Oh, there's some rivet action going on here. No, you can't do that to it, rivet. I was trying to see if I could get both in the one shot, but maybe I can. Two rivets, one microscope. Was that ever on the internet? Did we just learn something? Oxbite, did that answer your question? Science found. Bring your lab coat? Yep. I think I've actually got one at home. After science like that, a cuddle would be nice. There's too much science for one night. Was that cool? I think that's really cool. I'm gonna love having this little thingy-mabob in here. We can science the shit out of stuff, you know? Like we just did. How that is cool, right? I think that was worth the $50. That didn't cost me $50. I think that was worth. I think it was worth. And even if you don't believe me, here's the piece before I cleaned it up. This is the material before I sanded it off and cleaned it all up. You can see it's got a lot better. That's what it looks like after it comes out of a bandsaw. Eh? I need to change the bandsaw. So this I'll be able to show you how we clean up material. Yeah, I could even show you that, right? Like, so this is a. Well, let me show you a bird edge. They're my fingers. She's a wee bit bright, so let's go ahead and turn this down a bit. Turn it all the way down. Yeah, she struggles in super duper low light, so it needs some LED action. That's pretty good. All right, so this is what a bird edge looks like of material, right? So this hasn't been cut. This is just sort of what it looks like. It doesn't really look that pretty, right? Maybe I'll do these. Yeah, there we go. So this is what a bird edge looks like. So just take note of all of the cracks and things like that in the edge material. Well, that is what burrs are. We don't want those there because all of those are what's called stress razors, and those stress razors will manifest themselves as cracks. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and clean them up here really super duper quickly. So compare what we were just looking at to a now D-bird edge. All of those tooling marks are now removed. We've got a nice, shiny, grainy bit of material there ahead of us. Oh, fucking lovely. So that's what I'm doing when I'm always over on that wheel, is getting the material to look like that. There we go. We've got to save those science pieces. They'll go into a museum one day. I should put a DP601 on this. So when do you want to use the first kind? Well, good question. When do I want to use the first kind? So the rivet that we were looking at there, the pull rivet, is we would want to use a pull rivet if we cannot get to the other side of the rivet. You know, how we form a rivet head is of course with a bucking bar and these Cherry Max. Yeah, they sort of are. Yeah, is with a bucking bar, but we need to get to both sides of the rivet to form it properly, right? We need to be on the top side of the rivet with a gun or a bucking bar. We need to be on the bottom side with a gun or a bucking bar. We squeeze the two parts together. So the time when we use a pop rivet, like this, when we use a pop rivet like this, is when we can't get to the back side. Now, this is an aviation-specific pop rivet. It's called a Cherry Max rivet. Now, it is a little bit stronger than the other one that we've got there, but it also is incredibly more expensive. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of a dissection of this. I'm not going to use it because they are so expensive. One of these rivets is like $1. So the first thing we'll see is, here's an overview of it, is we have the same thing where we have a pull strand up here. So we have a rod, we have a soft material in the center part, and we also have the knob at the end that gets drawn through the soft material. So when we go ahead and have a look at that, we can see here is the shaft. There's actually a little washer there. That little washer is designed to protect the head of the rivet. And then we have the soft material of the rivet. And then you'll notice here we actually have, well, two knobs. And the reason for this is this part here, remember in the other rivet when I was showing it to you and I was saying the center part is actually, it's nothing, it's a void. Well, with this rivet, with a Cherry Max rivet, it's designed to fill that void with some solid material, that part right there. And that part right there is structural. The difference being is this rivet here costs about $1 to $1.20 each. Each individual rivet about $1, $1.20. Our little solid rivet would be somewhere in the realms of 0.05 of a cent. Maybe a tenth of a cent per rivet. So if you're riveting, thousands of rivets, this guy here gets very, very expensive very, very quickly. Whereas a solid rivet does a better job. It's just as strong and costs you a few cents. So the reason we would use these rivets here is, again, if we can't get to the bottom side and we need it to be structural. That's not saying these rivets cannot be structural. This is a standard rivet. It does not mean they cannot be structural. They just offer less in some cases. In some cases. In other cases, well, yeah, they don't. So, yeah, there we go. We got some science in, team. What do you guys think? You guys in? I was really in. You didn't notice? I thought that was cool as shit. As Jesse Goodman said,